Okay, so the purpose of this video is to explain to you how to use these selection tools, how to understand the layers, and how to know how to resize and move your selections in Photoshop when you're trying to combine pictures. Once you understand these Photoshop concepts, your possibilities for making digital artworks are really endless, but you need to understand these basic things before you can start doing that. So let's go ahead and open up Photoshop. So you go to Start, All Programs, scroll down until you see Adobe Design Premium CS5, and click on Adobe Photoshop CS5 64-bit. So hopefully I do these in the same steps that I wrote down in the instructions on the Google Doc. So the first thing you're going to do is open up your pictures that you want to combine. You're going to open up the background picture first. So you had to take 3 separate pictures of you or another person in front of the white wall out in the hallway. Doing it in front of the white wall makes it easier to make selections in Photoshop. Then you needed to either take 3 background pictures or find 3 backgrounds from the internet. So your backgrounds are really open to whatever you want to do, so it can be as funny or serious as you want it to be, as long as it's appropriate. You're going to open up that background picture first. So go to File, Open, and then wherever you saved that picture or took that picture, you're going to do that first. So I'm just going to do a basic background night sky with the stars here. And now you're going to place the next picture on top of this one. So right now I have 1 layer. This is your layers panel. This shows you the stack of images that you have available to you, either ones that you've put in or copied. Right now I have 1. I'm going to add another layer by placing it on top. So when I File, I'm going to select Place instead of Open. So when I click on Place, I can pick whatever picture I want, and I'm going to use one of the pictures of my daughter Abby. So this picture isn't the same size as the background picture. I can resize it, but then she would be distorted. So for now I'm just going to leave it like this. To officially place the picture, you either click the check mark that's up here, or just hit Enter on your keyboard. So now if you look at the layers panel, now I have 2 separate layers, my background layer and then whatever picture I've placed on top. Right now this layer is converted as a smart object, and sometimes you run into problems with something being a smart object. So I'm going to have you right click on this layer and you're going to click Rasterize Layer. And we get rid of that icon, and now you should be free to edit this picture with no restrictions. The only thing about not having it as a smart object is sometimes when you increase the size, it does become a little pixelated and sometimes blurry. So for now, we're going to leave it like this, and hopefully for this project we'll be okay. Alright, before we get into making selections, I'm just going to quickly explain layers a little bit more. So right now we only have these 2 layers, and my background layer is locked. You can tell that by this little lock icon. That means I can't move these around. If I double click on this lock and I click OK, now it's layer 0 instead of the background, and I'm free to move these. So the layers work just like stacks of paper. Depending on which one is on top, you can't see what's below it. You can change the opacity of a layer, which means you can see through it a little more. So sometimes that effect works, sometimes it doesn't. Depends on what you're trying to do with your picture. For this project, I want my background layer on the bottom and the other layer with the picture of the person on top. So we're going to leave it just like that. Now we can get into making some selections. So our tools for making selections are these first 3 after the Move tool. So layer number 2, or I'm sorry, tool number 2, tool number 3, and tool number 4 all make selections. This one right here, if you click and hold, you'll see these are shapes, so I can make a selection with a particular shape. We're not going to use that one today. These 3 here are lasso tools, so these ones let you draw freehand. So if I take the lasso tool and I start tracing over my daughter here, I can actually freehand draw a selection. The thing about this is it's sometimes hard to draw freehand, especially with a mouse. So if I close this shape, I have that selection there. A selection allows you to start editing whatever is inside those marching ants that are kind of outlining whatever you just drew around. So if I take my Move tool and I click and hold here, you can see a little pair of scissors there. That means I'll cut this out and I can start moving my daughter's head anywhere I want. I'm going to undo that because I don't want to move that right now. If you ever need to get rid of a selection, you can hit Control D on your keyboard. That gets rid of a selection and allows you to do a new one. The other thing with drawing your own selection is sometimes it takes very long. This next one down, you either have the Quick Selection tool or the Magic Wand. We're going to use the Quick Selection tool. If you click and hold on these icons, that's how you see which other ones are available to you. So if you do not have the Quick Selection tool up here, you need to click and hold and select the Quick Selection tool. The Quick Selection tool works just like its name suggests. It quickly allows you to make a selection inside your image. So when you start clicking and you hold down and you start dragging over an area of your picture, it will start selecting like areas of the picture. So it's starting to realize that I want to select her dress. So it's selecting all of the pink and white and yellow parts of the dress. Now sometimes with the Quick Selection tool, if you get too close to an edge, it selects everything. So since her background is all one color, it just selected the entire picture. There are ways around this. For now I'm going to try to show you how to keep selecting. So I'm going to do Control Z to go back, because I want to show you how right here it selected most of her head just with a couple of clicks of my mouse. And if I come into her dress, it'll do the same thing. But again, it selected the whole thing. So if it's going to keep doing that for me, the way around that is to hold Alt on my keyboard. And now if you noticed inside my circle for my selector, it turned to minus. That means I'm going to start taking away from my selection. So I can start dragging around, and it's going to start taking away some of those colors. And I can even get this area in here. Maybe not. And we can try that. That's working a little bit better. So sometimes this takes a couple of clicks, and it takes a couple of adjustments. So I'm going to try to get this area outside of her hair. And right now I have almost everything that I want, but as I'm trying to adjust this, my selector's not working. That's where I'm going to have to go back to my lasso tool, and then if I want to zoom in, I can hit Control+. And now with the lasso tool, if I hold down Alt, I will also take away from my selection. So I can actually draw in the spot that I want to take away, so I can get that empty space under her arm. And if I hold down Shift, I'll actually add to my selection. So I want to get this part of her little ponytail, and I'm drawing around, so this starts adding to her hair. So now that part is included in my selection. And if I want to add some more of her hair over here, I'm drawing it in, and then same thing over here. So I'm holding down when I click with the mouse, and again, Shift adds, Alt takes away. So you'll see, if I hold down Shift, I get a little plus next to my lasso. If I hold down Alt, I get a little minus next to my lasso. So if I try to zoom out here by hitting Control minus, now my selection looks a little bit better. So you want to try to keep your selection as tight to your person as possible. So now I want to get rid of the background here. Before I do that, I'm going to make a copy of this selection. So if I hold down Control on my keyboard and I hit J, I've just made a copy of that picture of my daughter. So I can click on the other picture, which is the original one, and hit Delete. So that deletes the entire layer. So you can see I've eliminated all that background except for this one random line that was included there. So if I want to get rid of that random line, I'm going to make sure that that layer is selected. You can always tell which layer is selected by which one's highlighted in blue. I'm going to take my eraser tool, and I'm just going to erase that line. So notice it's not doing anything to the night sky, because the only layer I have selected is this picture of Abby. If I were to click on my background layer with my eraser tool, I would start erasing the sky, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to make sure that the right layer is always selected. If you mistakenly delete something that you didn't mean to, just hit Control Z to undo one step. As you can see, the edges of my selection here aren't exactly perfect. They're a little bit faded and fuzzy around the edges, but there are ways to fix that I can show you. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to move on just to kind of show you how to finish up. So the last thing I really wanted to show you was how to move this selection around. Your Move tool is the very first tool in the toolbar. If I click on the Move tool, and I have this layer of Abby selected, I can click and hold, and I can move her anywhere I want in the picture. So if I wanted her on this side, I can move her over there. The other thing I want to show you is how to resize the picture. If I click Control and hold it down, and then press T on my keyboard, it brings up a transform box. I can make her as big or as small as I want. by moving the corners or the sides. If I hold down Shift while I select a corner, it will keep the aspect ratio of your picture the same. So when I make her really small or really big, it'll try to keep all those widths and heights within a certain ratio. If I just click on the top and I drag her down, she gets kind of really squished down, or if I click on the side, she'll get really thin. So, go back 2 steps here. If I hold down Shift, it will kind of keep it within a ratio. If you wanted to rotate your image at all, when you take your selector towards the corners, when it turns that little half circle or quarter circle, you can click and hold, and then you can rotate your image that way. So if I wanted to stick her in the corner like this, rotate her down, and then maybe make her just a little bit smaller. And then if I hit the check mark, I will get rid of my transform controls. Once you reach this point and you're all finished, you would save this image as a JPEG. So you would go to File, Save As, make sure you change the format to a JPEG, and then name it something recognizable. You need to create 3 of these images. Their backgrounds, again, are open to whatever you'd like them to be as long as they are appropriate. Your images that you're putting in are either yourself or someone that you took a picture of. I'm sorry that this video is so long, but it was a lot to cover to kind of show you these introductory steps to editing images in Photoshop. Some of this might be very confusing, and I will do my best to help you, but really I need you to kind of experiment with it to see how well you can handle it and see what you really will need help with. When you're all finished with your 3 images, please submit them on a Google slide and answer the 2 questions that are linked to this assignment. Make sure you submit everything on the Google Classroom post so I can turn in your grade.